Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the Starline by a best-selling author, journalist, historian, publicist, and adjunct media studies professor at Emerson College in Boston. His fourth book is Norman Lear, His Life and Times. We welcome Tripp Whetsell.
Thank you.
Tripp, let's go beyond the mic. You grew up with his shows. You crossed paths and interviewed Norman several times. What made Norman Lear's story so important for you to just get right?
Well, because he was such a, he had such a huge impact on my life. And I grew up watching these shows in the 70s. He became a personal hero of mine, and I love watching his shows. And of course, I teach a class on him at Emerson, and that was a big thing. And I was just, and I'm a journalist. You want to get it right. You got to get it right. That's if you don't have your facts, you don't have anything.
As there is so much information out there about him, some information was wrong. How hard was it to separate the wheat from the chaff to finish this project?
Well, again, being a journalist, you check and recheck and recheck and recheck. You can, and you cover all your bases, and you have some smart people looking at it too, and telling you what's wrong. I want to give a shout out to my good friend Jeff Abraham, who is responsible for me he's a fantastic publicist, but he's also one of the world's most foremost comedy historians. He owns the largest private collection of comedy memorabilia in the world, and he puts my knowledge of comedy to shame. He can tell you dates down to the second. So he was a tremendous help, and so that's the thing. You get people who are smarter than you to read stuff, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Lear's career-defining moments was filled with Hollywood treachery and a bunch of lucky breaks. Which is your favorite? I
would say the lucky breaks. The lucky breaks are always good. The happy parts.
Like which specific one?
Well, I think this. One of my favorite stories is it just shows persistence and how you can do anything. And one of the coolest stories to me is how he ended up getting to be Danny, it shows you how much the world has changed. And this is how his big break into television was when he wrote for comedian Danny Thomas, who was the founder of St. Jude's Research Hospital. A lot of people won't remember him, the younger listeners, but he was one of the hottest nightclub comedians in the country. And Norman had an idea. He was already writing comedy for a lot of nightclub comedians in Los Angeles. He had an idea about a routine that Danny Thomas would be good for him. And he got his name as the number of his agent he looked that up in Variety, the trade magazine, and he called up and the William Morris office and got his number by pretending to be a reporter from the New York Times who just finished a story and was about to fly back to New York on deadline. And they said they gave it to him, so they let him do it, and he was able to finagle his way in. That's kind of a really cool story, and it just shows you, how much chutzpah people had and what you could do then that you can't do now. It's a similar, very kind of cool story to Dick Cavett, who is the great TV host, who was Jack Parr's monologue writer on The Tonight Show. Dick had been was a copy boy at Time Magazine right across the street in the Time Life building here in New York. And he thought he could do better jokes than as a monologue writer on The Tonight Show. So what he did, he typed up a bunch of jokes, put them in a Time Magazine envelope, took it across the street, pretended to be a messenger, and encountered Jack Parr in the men's room at NBC. And you just can't do those things these days because, getting through the gatekeepers is like getting through Fort Knox.
The book is Norman Lear, His Life and Times, and Tripp Whetsell joins us beyond the mic. It's time for the Rockin' A Trip. All this is 8 random questions. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. There is no pressure. Best place on the Emerson College campus, just to think.
Oh my gosh. I probably have to say in front of the Norman Lear statue.
Which is your favorite of your interviews from the Bud Friedman and Tripp Whetsell collection at Emerson?
I would say, and thanks for giving Emerson such a big play, I would say Jay Leno was great. Alan Dwight Bell, who was one of the original writers from Saturday Night Live and become one of my great friends. George Shapiro, who was Andy Kaufman's manager, and Jerry Seinfeld's manager for many years, a wonderful guy who did this documentary I was telling you about, who's done many, many wonderful things to really help promote my career. Robert Klein, Richard Lewis, so many things came to mind, yeah. But that's what I would have to say the top. Billy Crystal was great.
How about your favorite moment at the New York Friars Club?
I loved it. Oh my gosh, you really look into everything. Wow. The Friars Club was a great organization. I would say the friendships I made there over the years. Unfortunately, Friars Club is no longer with us. It closed, but it was just, I guess, the friendships, I love just the great times.
Which up-and-coming comedians make you laugh today?
That's a hard question. I mean, they're not so much up-and-coming, but I guess the younger comedians now. I mean, I love Sebastian Maniscalco. People like that. He's not up and coming, but I love some of these guys,
So, Tripp, since you like comedy, where is the best comedy club of all time?
Well, I would have to say the Improv Comedy Club, because I wrote the book on it with Bud Friedman. Bud was the original guy. It was fabulous. It was a great club. He was the godfather of comedy clubs. Today, that's still the case. I mean, but in New York, I want to give a trip and a half to Gotham Comedy Club, which my good friend Chris Mazzilli owns. He's sort of like the Bud Friedman of today. There's also the Comedy Cellar in the Village. So, but I would have to say the Improv would be my favorite, because I obviously have a special relationship with them.
What's the one thing about Cliff Nesterhoff that makes you smile?
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. They gave me a good blurb for my book. That makes me smile a lot. And he's a great writer, and I was honored to have him give me a good, what he said in the book. I'll read you the blurb from the book, which I hope will get people to buy it. He called it a remarkably dense biography that does justice to one of television's most remarkable figures. He said, Norman Lear's Life and Times is a must. So I hope everyone will go out and buy it. And more than one copy.
So, Tripp, what's the topic of your next book?
Well, I'm thinking about a few things. I don't know quite yet, though. I've got a ghostwriting project I'm doing with a very interesting woman who is here in New York right now. And I've got a few things that are on the table and nothing decisively yet. But some interesting things are happening, and I've got a few projects in the pipeline. And I'm just doing this and, enjoying my teaching career at Emerson College and doing some more, going to do some more articles as an entertainment journalist. So a lot of exciting stuff ahead.
Time for the hardest question ever. Pick one to boo, heckle, or clap. Letterman, Leno, Conan. Who do you boo? Who do you heckle? Who do you clap?
Definitely clap for Jay Leno, because he went to Emerson too, and he graciously did the foreword for my last book on the Improv, and he's a lovely guy. The other two I really can't say. I mean, I like Conan. I met Conan a couple of times. I never met Letterman. I always thought he was a fun guy, but I know he was kind of a prickly guy too, and I never met him.
It's time for One Big Question with Tripp Whetsell. His book is Norman Lear, His Life and Times. Tripp, Norman Lear was part of your life growing up. You wrote a book about him, met him several times. How will he be remembered in the future as network TV has changed with streaming and digital? I
think he will be the man that was remembered for the guy that made it all happen. He was responsible for, such a tectonic change in American television that, he was the man who created the template for which all of the shows followed, particularly the sitcoms. And he paved the way.
He loves Sebastian Maniscalco's comedy, the friendships he made at the New York Friars Club, and wants you to read Norman Lear, His Life and Times. Where can people find it?
And you can buy it at normanlearbio.com. So, as I said, online at your local retailer. Thank you for having me on the show.
Tripp Whetsell, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Wow, that was so much fun.
And that, my friends, is a Beyond the Mic shortcut. If you're enjoying these conversations, please check out another Beyond the Mic episode to find more actors, artists, and people you need to know. We'd also appreciate a like and subscribe on the Good Pods app.